Welcome to Nevada Newsmakers. On the program today, we explore the history of Supreme Court confirmation hearings. Ray Hagar has the rundown.
Thanks, Sam. Today's guest is presidential historian Clay Jenkinson. Yeah, we're going to talk about the Supreme Court. But I want to know, did Teddy Roosevelt really eat 20 eggs a day for breakfast?
And coming up on the Power Pundit panel today, Harry York, John Gwaltney, and Ray Bacon. It's all coming up next on an all-new Nevada Newsmakers.
Nevada Newsmakers, brought to you in part by the Tahoe Reno Industrial Center, the world's largest industrial park, the resort at Red Hawk, and the Peppermill family of casinos.
How long does it take to get to the Tahoe Reno Industrial Center, the world's largest industrial park? Well, it's just 10 minutes east of Reno-Sparks on Highway 80, just minutes from the airport. And under construction is an interchange linking I-80 to TRI's 4-lane USA Parkway. And soon, this parkway will connect Interstate 80 to Highway 50. How far is the world's largest industrial center from your home? It's a lot closer than you think. Welcome to the Tahoe Reno Industrial Center, building economic prosperity for Nevadans.
Something spectacular has taken wing not far from Reno or Lake Tahoe, and never far from your mind. An escape of fine dining and legendary golf. Introducing the resort at Red Hawk. And at the center of it all, we've feathered our nest with new villas that have elevated Red Hawk to the status of a premier resort. The resort at Red Hawk, a beautiful new arrival in northern Nevada. Nevada Newsmakers is sponsored in part by the Nevada Beer Wholesalers Association.
As an employer, did you know you can be held liable for negligent hiring? A background screening by Employer Links can uncover criminal records, like alcohol and drug convictions. It can verify the applicant's education, driving records, and professional licenses. Employer Links can check civil records, registered sex offender records, and Social Security fraud. Hiring the right person shouldn't be a gamble. Call Employer Links. Employer Links, protecting your investment.
So, who do you use for workers' comp?
Pro Group Management.
Ah, I've heard some good things about them.
Oh, you bet. Employee background checks, safety training, claim seminars. Oh, and here's the great part. If you have an issue, they work for you, not against you.
Sounds perfect. And expensive.
Well, that's the best part. They saved me 30%. I've heard they've saved others 50%.
Works for me. Pro Group Management. Finally, workers' comp that works for you.
This is Nevada Newsmakers with host Sam Shad, a no-holds-barred political forum. Now, from the Nevada Newsmakers broadcast headquarters, here is Sam Shad.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers, we're joined by Clay Jenkinson, presidential historian. Always a pleasure to have you here on the program.
Always great to be here.
Let's start out with the John Roberts confirmation hearings. Have the hearings always been so contentious prior to Robert Bork?
No, almost never. The history of the court has been a very quiet process. There have been rejections going all the way back to the Founding Fathers. Generally speaking, the president has gotten the court that he has wanted. And Jefferson's view was the president deserves the court that he wants, that unless the nominee is corrupt or inept, unfit somehow for the position, the duty of the Senate is to consent, that the Senate is not given the power under the Constitution, according to Jefferson, to object on ideological grounds.
You know, right now it seems to me that the fight is whether it's about abortion or judicial restraint. Is that the way it comes across to you?
Well, and these are sort of code words for something bigger. Abortion is really about not only sanctity of life, but the place of religion in American life, the secularization of American life, the materialization of American life, and I think the evangelical community feels anxiety about that. We all do, but wants somehow to put the genie back in the bottle on modernity. And I think that's probably a very potent energy, but it's an inarticulate one. I don't think it's really about abortion in the end. And judicial restraint is a ridiculous notion. We're now an advanced democracy with, cloning, biotechnology, terrorist agents, the internet, cyber porn. James Madison couldn't have understood any of that. The judiciary has to be activist. The question is, what sort of activist judges are we going to get?
What about the idea of expanding the court for more justices like was tried in with FDR? Do you think
failed? The Constitution does not tell you how many justices there need to be. You could have 30, you could have 2. The Constitution is silent on this question. It goes back to the Judiciary Act of 1789, which is in a sense the second round of the Constitution. We could have as many as we decided to have, but I think it's now basically set in stone at 9. The change that's likely to come, or at least is being talked about, is a really interesting one: life tenure. You know, when life tenure was begun in Jefferson's era, someone who was appointed at the age of 50 might live 8 more years. Now, if you're appointed at 50, you might live 50 more years. So that's a long tenure on the court, and there will probably be a movement to limit the term, say, to 20 years, so that at least there will be some transition on the high court.
Okay, this debate about the confirmation of Justice Roberts, do you see a trickle-down effect to Attorney General Brian Sandoval and his long wait to become a federal judge?
I don't see any trickle down, but I think Roberts is going to sail through. I don't think there will be significant opposition. I think the big opposition is waiting for the next one, for the chief, when Rehnquist goes. I don't think that the Democrats are going to spend a lot of capital on this. I think this is a good man. You know, whatever you think of him ideologically, I think he's a good judge. People respect him. I think he'll sail through. But I do believe that there is a national scandal in not getting judges confirmed. You know, all of the circuits have backlists, the logs of trials that have not yet occurred, the judges who have not been confirmed. There has to be a better way to fill the high courts in the United States. This process is demeaning to everyone who gets involved. It's a scandal.
Oh, you know, Senator Reid would argue with you. I mean, he says that the majority of the president's picks have been nominated or have taken their place, and it's very few that there's a lot of contention.
Well, maybe, but in Clinton's administration, a lot were held up by the Republicans, and now in the Bush administration, a lot have been held up by the Democrats. If you just picked out the 3 or 4 who are really controversial and put them in a separate box and then said, the others, let's just get through and get them on the courts so that they can do the business that the Constitution requires of them. I think that there has to be resistance to deep ideologues, you know, people who come on the court with an agenda. But I don't think that it's wise for this to be politicized to the extent that it has since the Bork administration.
Well, I would just reiterate that Senator Reid, if he were here, would disagree with you on that. But that's okay. We can agree to disagree. Okay. The one thing that I noted that was brought some levity into this was in the past 24 hours, there's a great article in the New York Times about John Roberts and the fact that he is a real attention to detail person when it comes to grammar. And so, at minimum, we would get a great Scrabble player on the Supreme Court. So that's the
or a great editor.
Well, let me just say one more thing about this. That almost all Supreme Court justices betray the person who appointed them. Jefferson appointed 3 people to the Supreme Court. They all disappointed him. Theodore Roosevelt appointed Oliver Wendell Holmes, thinking he would be a Roosevelt man. Holmes dissented in key cases, including the Northern Securities case. Eisenhower famously said, "I've only made 2 mistakes as president, and both of them are on the Supreme Court." Once these people are on the court, they start to become independent. It's a good thing, and presidents are almost invariably disappointed with the loyalty factor in the people that they have appointed. That's good. That's separation of powers.
Do you see that happening with Mr. Roberts?
Yes, I think he's an independent thinker.
Now, he's also a mentoree of William Rehnquist. Do you think that there was any kind of discussion between Bush and Rehnquist saying, hey, you want me out of here, you put my man on that court first?
I doubt it somehow. I think Rehnquist is a very independent man. I think he's above, in a sense, he's above the political process by now. He's been there a long time. He's watched presidents come and go. I can't believe, frankly, that he thinks very highly of this president. I think that Rehnquist is probably incapable of using power to replace himself.
Well, what a remarkable man, though, that in the face of this great illness that he's been suffering, that he continues to go to work as often as possible.
Yeah, he should retire, but I love that spirit that he has.
Well, a lot of people who have terminal illnesses but are still able to continue are taking a lot of strength from the fact that William Rehnquist is doing this. Let's take a break. More with Clay Jenkins when we come back.
For a videotape copy of any Nevada Newsmakers program, call 775-857-2244. The tapes are $20 each, including shipping.
For more than a decade, the Southern Nevada Water Authority has been helping the community embrace conservation as a way of life.
That includes replacing more than 50 million square feet of grass with water-smart landscaping. During the worst drought on record, watering restrictions and tough landscaping codes have reduced the community's water use by billions of gallons, even as thousands of new residents were moving into Nevada. That's smart water management, and that's our promise to Nevada.
My family started this business 27 years ago. We work hard to serve our customers and our community.
But it's getting harder and harder to keep the doors open.
For example, our workers' comp is going through the roof. Isn't anyone on my side anymore?
The Retail Association of Nevada is. If you're a small business owner, we can cut your workers' comp by up to 50%, lobby for your interests, and keep you informed. Put us to work today.
Happy Hour at the Pepper Mill.
Thanks to an ongoing commitment by America's mining companies, more than 2 million acres already have been reclaimed. To learn more about reclamation or other aspects of mining, visit nma.org. The National Mining Association.
And now, back to Nevada Newsmakers with Sam Shad.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers, we're joined again by Clay Jenkinson, presidential historian. And tonight, which is the 30th as we tape this, you'll be appearing at Bartley Ranch in northern Nevada in Reno, playing both Teddy Roosevelt and Thomas Jefferson, which will be an interesting feat. Starts at 7 o'clock. There are a couple of tickets left, so if you want to go do that. You also have a new TV show that's on public television up in northern Nevada called One-on-One, which is a terrific show. I watched an episode last week. I really enjoyed it. And you can find out information about that by going to knpb.org. And for those who are associated with public television in southern Nevada, you need to get this show because he is great.
Thank you.
Cindy Sheehan has become the figurehead for the anti-war movement. Do the midterms mean that the Republicans have to break with the president because of what we're seeing going on right now on our TVs?
I don't know how to gauge what Cindy Sheehan is doing. I think she believes in what she's doing. I don't impugn her integrity. I think she has politicized this in a way that's probably taken a little of the earnestness away from her anguish as a mother of a fallen soldier. But this has become the nexus, the Woodstock of the anti-war movement. I think it's having an effect on the country. I think the country is weary of this war. Democracies are notoriously and historically impatient about wars. I think this puts the Bush administration, or any administration, in a really bad position. My own view is that now that we're in it, we have to see it through, that if we leave and this descends into pandemonium, that we will have done a double evil. I think invading was wrong, but not staying now would be even wronger in my mind. And so there's a lot of confusion ahead in the country.
But now, Iraq did not exist as Iraq before Winston Churchill put together, you know, as the British did across the Middle East, put together this fake country. And now we're seeing the results of this with the Kurds in the north and Shia and the Sunni.
And the Palestinians and the Israelis, the whole thing is a chaos there.
Can it break it? Do you see this Iraq breaking into 3 different countries with Sunni, Shiites, and Kurds?
I have no idea. I think this is all something that's in the womb of time. But I see civil war almost certainly, and I see strong men arising like Saddam. I think there was a reason that there was a Saddam Hussein, that only a strong man like Tito or Saddam Hussein can hold together a tribal culture like that when artificial boundaries. I can't believe that the Constitution, however admirable it is in theory, can actually work. I don't think that the Iraqi people are ready for a benign American-style constitution, and I think our attempt to impose it on them is an act of colossal hubris and arrogance. But let's hope it works.
You know, the other thing too is that the Kurdistan problem is much bigger than just Iraq, because now you bring in Turkey, you bring in Iran, and neither of them want to see an independent Kurdish state in the north because they have their own problems. So the ramifications go well beyond Iraq for that.
Well, the Kurdish state is a problem, Turkey and Iran. The Shiite state that Iran would like to see formed would be a problem for oil and for the West. Then there is the Ba'athist Party that still wants power and is resentful. And there's no way that this can come out without enormous amounts of bloodshed and chaos into the indefinite future. And I don't think we'll ever regret having removed Saddam Hussein, but I think we will have thought we knew way too little about the reality on the ground of Middle Eastern tribalism and politics before going in. And this is going to be a blemish on American national honor, I think, for a century.
Well, what needs to be done, Clay, in the next year for the Republicans to keep the White House and their majority in both houses in Congress in respect to the war in Iraq?
I don't think the war is going to take them out. I think that if the people had been against the war, that George Bush would not have been reelected in 2004. I think that Red America is pretty happy with the Republican administrations, and if the Republicans can find an able successor candidate to George Bush, he's likely or she's likely to win.
Well, what about the polls that show Bush having 40% approval rate?
Well, he had low approval rating before the election, but when they went into those polls, they thought Kerry and Kerry's somewhat inarticulate policies, Bush and his somewhat simplistic policies, and the country voted marginally, but in affirmation to the Bush administration. I think the country is anxious about the war, but when push comes to shove, a majority still support this administration.
And the other thing is that the Democrats need to get organized on what their message is, what their purpose is, and so they can get that message out to the nation, because they clearly did not do that in the last election. It was about being for or against Bush, not about being for or against the Democrats. I wanted you to get a chance to ask the question that you set up in the opening to the show.
In a book that I recently read, a historian stated that Teddy Roosevelt sometimes ate as many as 24 eggs for breakfast.
Well, I've eaten 5.
24. And then Warren G. Harding gambled away the White House china in a poker game.
Well, that would be bad. I think eggs are better than gambling away the china. I don't know either of those stories. Roosevelt had gargantuan appetites. He went on a Western tour in 1903 and gained 18 pounds while riding horses and shooting bears and walking and hiking, and he was as strenuous as he had ever been in his life, and he still gained 18 pounds.
Well, when you eat 20 eggs in a day...
He was eating yak and buffalo and bear, and he had big appetites.
Clay Jenkinson will be appearing tonight at Bartley Ranch in northern Nevada, playing both Teddy Roosevelt and Thomas Jefferson. A few tickets available. It starts at 7 p.m. One-on-One, his new show on kmpb.org. Check it out. Always a pleasure to have you here.
Great to be here.
We'll be right back on Nevada Newsmakers after this.
This is Nevada Newsmakers.
Here at the Tahoe Reno Industrial Center, we focus on attracting high-tech companies to northern Nevada. One vital amenity provided to companies at TRI is a connection to a complete digital fiber network. This gives the ability of unlimited bandwidth and voice services to every business. And what's charged for the installation of this valuable asset? Nothing. Zero. Nada. And that's a pretty good deal. Welcome to the Tahoe Reno Industrial Center, the largest industrial park in the world, building economic prosperity for Nevadans.
Dave, I'm telling you, it's all in the follow-through.
Actually, Dave, it's all in the putting.
No matter how you swing, it's a classic opportunity to play for local organizations.
That's why we're teeing off in the Kest Classic at Wolf Run on September 15th. Arch Tournament will benefit Care Chest of Sierra Nevada, providing free medical supplies to those in need, and help our local Seroptimists support the community.
Hey, Dave, you've got the perfect score.
I tell you, John, this industry has really changed.
Tell me about it.
You seem to do pretty well last year. What's your secret?
No secrets. Although I'll tell you something. The smartest thing I did was sign up with Pro Group Management.
Really? They do workers' comp, right?
Yeah, their services are great. And get this, they saved me 30%. I've heard they saved others 50%.
That works for me.
Pro Group Management. Finally, workers' comp that works for you. Something spectacular has taken wing not far from Reno or Lake Tahoe, and never far from your mind. An escape of fine dining and legendary golf. Introducing the resort at Red Hawk. And at the center of it all, we've feathered our nest with new villas that have elevated Red Hawk to the status of a premier resort. the resort at Red Hawk, a beautiful new arrival in northern Nevada.
And now, back to Nevada Newsmakers with Sam Shad.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers, we're joined on our Power Pundit panel today by Harry York. He is the Chief Executive Officer of the Reno-Sparks Chamber of Commerce. John Gwaltney is here with the State School Board. And Ray Bacon, Executive Director of the Nevada Manufacturers Association. Welcome to all of you. You know, interesting with this whole hurricane story and 25% of the domestic oil being produced in the Gulf, that just shoots oil up to $70 a barrel. And at the same time, we're seeing the government going absolutely nowhere with the CAFE standards to get more miles per gallon. What do you make of this, Harry?
Well, I don't have a concern whether I see the price relationship to the price of a gallon of gas. I'm a little concerned about the price relationship to the barrel because it's the refineries that they look like being damaged and knocked out, not necessarily the production of oil. But you know, they'll look at any way they can to raise the price of gas on us. So, but yeah, I think we need to be looking at improving mileage on all our vehicles, not necessarily making them smaller. I think they can. We're not going to get rid of our Yukons and our Denali's and those kind of things, but they can make them more efficient. Come a long ways.
It's a supply and demand question, usually is. And yeah, go ahead, Roy.
Well, you know, as you know, my former employer was deeply involved in the oil industry. I was at Exxon Baytown while it was under construction. That is the last refinery to be built in this country.
And that's how many years ago?
Oh, a long time ago. I was younger and had a full head of hair at that point.
Oh, probably the 60s. You know.
70s. But where you're at is a situation where we have a huge NIMBY factor. Nobody wants to put a refinery in their backyard. And the only people that have been willing to accept a refinery have been the people in the Gulf states because their economy is tied to the oil industry so much. We got to go break the back of that thing and go build some new refineries. And plans have been out there. There have been plans in some places that have been turned down for years and years and years. But now we're reaching the point where at some point in time, additional refining capacity is absolutely necessary, or it's all going to be in China.
Yeah.
Because they'll build them over there, which means we'll convert our existing refinery capacity to put more gasoline out in deference to building more plastic or whatever type thing, some of the other things that come out of refinery, because all that stuff will be moved over shore. And this is a global issue, and we haven't stepped up to the party for 25 years, and it's time we did that.
Just like power.
It's a supply and demand question. We have the largest quantity of coal per capita of any population on the face of the earth. We have not yet figured out how effectively to use that BTU count and come up with the energy that it's capable of producing. We are using oil and natural gas in ways that are less than efficient by worldwide standards. We must figure out a way to change that condition. It's not that we don't have the power. We have that potential. We just don't want to use it, and we have not paid the price of developing the technology.
Doesn't it also lead us back into the whole nuclear era, because the nuclear industry is sensing, with the president behind it, that it is time for nuclear power to come and make its way back onto the stage?
And they're right.
Yeah, I think you're going to look at the same environmental reason. But, you know, maybe they'll switch. Maybe the people that opposed it in the past will look at it as differently now.
Well, we have 20 years of knowledge about how to do this type thing. I don't know that that's fail-safe yet. I mean, the fact of the matter is, I don't know how many people die from having a refinery in the backyard versus how many may die from a nuclear problem associated with that. So, but there's always a trade-off. There's never a time when there's a cost-free moment.
Issue that I know is near and dear to your heart is No Child Left Behind, and the state of Connecticut is suing their way to get out of this. Do you think that this is going to pick up steam across the country?
No.
Why?
Because most states are not going to walk away from the money. And the other side of the coin is, you know, and this is a point I've made several times before, but I'm going to make it again. We are the first society in the world, ever to step up to the point that all children deserve an education. And what I say to the folks that are against No Child Left Behind is, okay, fine. You and I walk into a classroom and you tell me which ones you're not going to educate, with the parents standing there.
But do you want to see a change in the standards so that in places like Nevada, where the ESL students tend to bring down the scores, that we need to have some changes to make.
So you're saying that you and I walk into the classroom and you'll say the ESL kids don't deserve an education?
No, I'm not saying that.
You just need to test it differently and account for it differently.
Well, I think you're right. I think the scorecard needs some refining. Exactly. I don't think the standards need to be changed. And I think the Connecticut lawsuit, and I just read a review of it last night again because it comes up fairly often, isn't really to opt out. The Connecticut lawsuit is to say of the federal folks, you cost us an additional $50 million, pay us. Yep. Now, there are two issues there very quickly. Number one is that the feds have never met their mandatory obligations. Why are we crying now? That's, I told my friends in the legislature who said they should send us the money. Why? This is your obligation. Why aren't you meeting it? The second part of that question is that I'm not sure that the additional cost is as much as a lot of people want to cry about. In other words, I'd like to make a profit on this new obligation I'm doing. I'm not so sure that it's all there.
It was primarily around the special ed area.
Yeah,
that's
a big chunk. It's a big chunk.
The financial.
And the feds have never funded special education what they said they were going to. Okay, that's undeniable. But when you go in and you start dissecting the thing, when the education folks came forward in 2001 with the budget and things like that, Raggio found multiple cases of duplication, which he just went in and hacked out. Okay, so even in our own state, we were guilty of trying to double dip on the federal money. Because he said, that and that are being funded by the feds. Forget that stuff.
But there's other pieces of it need to be looked at.
Absolutely.
Going back to the thing of Anderson Elementary, getting that additional funds to fix their problem, fixes the problem, then the funds go away. The problem never goes away.
No, and that is something that could be addressed. Mm-hmm. That's where we're going to leave it, gentlemen. Great discussion. We'll be right back on Nevada Newsmakers after this.
Nevada Newsmakers, brought to you in part by the Tahoe Reno Industrial Center, the world's largest industrial park, the resort at Red Hawk, and the Peppermill family of casinos.
South Reno's hotspot for food, fun, and friends is the Tamarack Junction. Enjoy great food 24 hours a day in the Dining Car Restaurant. For a quick bite and the best sandwiches in town, it's the Whistle Stop Deli. And for the best appetizers and menu selections and a large variety of cocktails, beers, and martinis, it's Sully's Sports Bar, Grill, and Nightclub. The Tamarack Junction is your junction for fun. South Virginia and Amati Ranch Parkway.
My family started this business 27 years ago. We work hard to serve our customers and our community.
But it's getting harder and harder to keep the doors open.
For example, our workers' comp is going through the roof. Isn't anyone on my side anymore?
The Retail Association of Nevada is. If you're a small business owner, we can cut your workers' comp by up to 50%, lobby for your interests, and keep you informed. Put us to work today.
Yeah, you can watch Nevada Newsmakers any time of day or night on NevadaNewsmakers.com. We keep 2 weeks worth of shows on there. Plus, you can email us right from the site, and we love to get your emails. Coming up tomorrow?
Well, Sam, we have Congressman Jim Gibbons. Maybe we got an announcement or something coming up.
Don't miss the show. We'll see you next time on Nevada Newsmakers.
Thank you.